Let's get started. Let me have your attention, please. Let's get started. Welcome to the University of Tennessee Nuclear Engineering Department Colloquium Program. My name is Lee Dodds, and it's my privilege to introduce today's speaker. But before I introduce today's speaker, there's some students that I want to recognize. Each year, our students compete nationally for scholarships and fellowships, and as it turns out, they're quite successful at this. I think I announced 4 a couple of weeks ago, and we have 4 more today. 2 or 3 weeks ago, the announcement was for A&S scholarships, which carried $2,000 checks. Today, these are scholarships awarded by the National Academy for Nuclear Training, and they're $2,500 each. And we have 4 students that are receiving these scholarships. As it turns out, 3 of them can't be with us today. 2 are co-oping, and 1 has a class, a lab class, and she couldn't be here. But 1 is here, and he is none other than our own Kyle Woolley. So Kyle, if you'll come down here. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
The other students are Jonathan Chavers and Jonathan Pope. They're both co-oping, and then the other student who has a class right now and couldn't be with us, but I still want to recognize all of them, and she is Laura Aller. Okay, now for the introduction of today's speaker, who is Dr. Alberto Garcia. He is professor and associate dean for academic affairs at our university and our College of Engineering. He received a BS in Industrial Engineering from the Industrial University Santander in 1970, and then an MS in 1973 from the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, and then a PhD again in Industrial Engineering in 1978, also from the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. He joined Texas A&M in the Industrial Engineering Department about 27 years ago, where he was a very productive faculty member, and he actually became the associate department head of that department, at which time, in fact, it was just this past August, our Dean Wei Kuo invited him to apply for the position of Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. He did, and he was selected for the job. And I've gotten to know him in the past few months. He is a very pleasant person to work with. We're real privileged to have him with us. And so his presentation today is entitled, How to Deliver a Message to Garcia. His name is Alberto Garcia. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please welcome Dr. Garcia.
Thank you very much. Indeed, my name is Alberto Garcia, but the one I'm going to talk about is Calixto Garcia, no relation to me. Also, another thing I'd like to say is those feelings that Dr. Dodds expressed just a few minutes ago, they are 100% mutual.
Thank you.
You know, I have learned to learn a little bit from you every day.
Thank you.
And still I feel that there is a lot more. So I'm looking forward with enthusiasm to the coming years. You know, as he said, I am an industrial engineer, so I have nothing to say about nuclear engineering. I did take Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2 when I was an undergraduate student, and I know a little bit about the atom and the electrons and all those things. I know you do work like that. But today I'm going to talk about something different. It's not even technical. You know, I'm going to talk about some thoughts that I have experienced, I have had through the years after I read a little pamphlet called A Message to Garcia. I was born and raised in Colombia, in the city of Bucaramanga. I don't know if you have heard of that in your life. You know, no problem. I will not take it personal. And I was going through my uncle Pedro's books, and I found one piece of paper translated into Spanish and it was titled La Carta Garcia, the letter to Garcia, not the message, but the letter. I read it. Even though I was a young kid, I was inspired. I thought, I like that. Years later, I went to the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I was wondering about how to do my dissertation. Nothing seemed to work. And I went into a bookstore, and I was just walking around. I found a book called A Message to Garcia, and I thought, I bet it's the same one that I read when I was a boy. So I got the little booklet, I opened it up, I read the whole thing while in the store. It was the same one. It's very, very short. Okay, and so it's really nothing else but reflections on the Spanish-American War. So I have prepared myself a few notes that I'd like to kind of use in my short presentation, in my short talk today, I would say, you know. So I appreciate very much being here today. I'd like to reiterate that with you. And even though I have been here for 2 months, something that is clear in my mind is how kind the people of Tennessee are. And the fact that I was 27 years in Texas helps. It's a joke. Elbert Hubbard was born in Bloomington, Illinois, which is not too far from Urbana-Champaign. And he was the publisher of a magazine called The Philistine. And he lived in Aurora, New York, East Aurora, New York. And he was thinking about the coming article, the March issue of the journal. And it was February 22nd, 1899. It was a Tuesday in the evening. He was talking with his son, Bert, over tea, and his son, a teenager himself, you know, came up with an interesting comment when he told his father. He said, you know, Dad, I really believe that the true hero of the Cuban War, the true hero of the Spanish-American War, was Rowan, R-O-W-A-N. Then Albert, the father, asked, why do you think so? And he said, because he delivered the message to Garcia. He's the one who went alone and did the thing. Okay. Then his father thought about this, and after supper, in less than 1 hour, he wrote his editorial column to the Philistine. And then a few days later, there was a request for 12 copies. Later on, a few days later, 50 copies, then 100, then 1,000, then 10,000, then 100,000. And at that time, he asked, why are they so interested in this issue? And they said, it's the stuff about Garcia. Okay. Today, it has been translated into all existing languages. At one time, there had been 40 million copies printed at one time. The director of the Russian Railways came to New York. He was given a copy of the message, and then he went back and gave it to every employee in the railroad business in Russia. Then from the U.S., went to Russia, to Germany, to France, to Spain. There it was translated as La Carta Garcia, Turkey, India, China, and so on. During the war between Japan and Russia, some of the Russian soldiers were caught prisoners, and after they inspected their belongings, they found the message. So the Japanese took it, translated it into Japanese, and gave it to every employee of the Japanese government. So, and at one time, all generations knew about this message. But little by little, we don't talk too much about it. You know, so maybe I am bringing it up a little bit today. Let me give you a little bit of background. You know, let's start with Cuba. You know, probably you know what Cuba Libre is. It's just a drink that is rum and Coke, but actually Cuba Libre means free Cuba. And in a way, in 1898, Cuba was not a free country yet, really, because it still was under the control of the Spanish system, the Spanish army. Think about this. In 1830, Simón Bolívar, the great liberator of those countries, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, died. Most of these countries were liberated in the early part of the century. And here we are near the end of the century, and still Cuba is under the Spanish control. There were some efforts, and the last one was perhaps the most successful one, was started in 1895 by José Martí, and that effort culminated in the Spanish-American War, because the American public was protesting about the presence of an army like this one, technically in controlling a country, should not be there. There was no reason for that, you know. So the Spanish-American War was declared by the United States to Spain on April 24th, which was a short war. It ended on July 17, 1898. You know, as a matter of fact, on December 10, a few months after that, they signed a treaty according to which then Spain would leave Cuba, would free Cuba. Now it became really Cuba Libre, and then ceded Puerto Rico and Guam to the U.S. and left the Philippines. The President of the United States in 1898 was William McKinley, a man from Ohio. He was a very interesting and successful politician, a congressman himself, twice governor of his state, and he was, as a matter of fact, re-elected in 1900 President of the United States. But he couldn't serve the second term because in Buffalo, New York, he was approached by an anarchist who shot him, and a few days later, in September 14, 1901, he died. But he was the President of the United States in 1898, and he was talking with a colonel, Colonel Wagner, Arthur Wagner, who was the chief of the Bureau of Intelligence, Bureau of Military Operations. You know, the president was talking to him, and he expressed to the colonel the need for the United States to deliver a message to General Calixto Garcia, and he asked the colonel, he said, "Colonel, who can deliver this message?" And then the colonel said, "I have a young lieutenant, and his name is Andrew Rowan." And he added, "I am sure that if anybody can deliver this message, Rowan is the person." Okay. So the president gave the order to give the message to Rowan. In essence, the idea was that there was one part of Cuba that wasn't really under the control of the American army. So, since it was not possible to get help from outside, then the president wanted to get the control and the help from inside, and the chief of the insurgents was a good person to choose in this case. So there was a road called the El Camino del Cobre, the Cobre Road. Cobre means copper, okay? And so the idea was to block this road so that the Spanish army would not be able to get their supplies from Spain. There were like 3 or 4 loaded ships were coming. And General Calixto Garcia was in the mountains of Cuba. There was no way to call him, to send him a telegraph, to use the U.S. Post Office, nothing like that. So you have to go and personally give the message to him. Okay. Now, Rowan, there is an interesting article on the internet, you can find it, written by Rowan himself. He talks about how he delivered the message to Garcia. I'm going to skip a lot of that today. But in essence, he did the following thing. He took the letter. Just use your imagination. He's a young guy, young lieutenant. When he retired, he was a colonel of the army. Okay, and after, I don't know if he retired or he just died, but he and his wife perished in the sinking of the Lusitania, on the Irish Sea. But now he's a young man at this time. He took the letter, used your imagination to see the picture. He sealed it up and he put it in a leather pouch. He strapped it over his chest, his heart, I would say. Then he left on an open boat, and 4 days later he landed. He was approached by some of the people in the resistance. They disappeared into the jungle. And then he came out on the other side. 3 weeks later, he had found Garcia. He had delivered the message. The operation was successful. And as you know, all of this is history. Okay. Now, some reflections. The single most important factor was the courage of the man and his indomitable spirit. And I'd like to elaborate a little bit on the elements of this factor, so that we will be able to see what we can learn from his commitment. I will emphasize 4 things at this time. He never asked, who is Garcia? Because he was told to deliver this message to General Calixto Garcia. He didn't say, who is he? He didn't say, where is he at? Okay. He didn't say, why me? And he didn't say, is this really important? So he and his mission became one. They were totally confounded. They were not separable. And that is the secret to great commitment. When the mission and the person become one, that's the secret of a commitment that nobody can stop. Okay? And indeed, he had developed the attitude of being excellent, of being of great worth. But that attitude takes time. See, you cannot say, today I want to have good attitudes like that when you wake up in the morning. Doesn't work. So it's little by little. You have to practice your habits, and you end up with your attitudes. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But he understood a very important fact in life, and the fact was very well expressed for William James, professor of psychology from Harvard University years back. William James summarized a lot of his work in the simple sentence, attitudes are more important than facts. If there is anything you should remember from this rather informal conversation or talk with me, I would like it to be that attitudes are more important than facts, because a fact is a fact. A fact, it comes in many ways to our life, and the attitude is the way you face the fact. So that's why attitudes are more important than facts. Okay. So General Garcia, of course, is now dead. Rowan delivered the message to him. But guess what? Garcia is everywhere, and he is still waiting for a message. Where is everywhere? Garcia is in this department. Garcia is in the College of Engineering. Garcia is in the University of Tennessee. Garcia is everywhere in Knoxville. Garcia is everywhere in Tennessee. Garcia is in the hospitals. Garcia is in the offices. Garcia is in the plants, airports, military installations, everywhere, and there is a message that needs to be delivered. And Rowan is all of us. You are Rowan. Can you be Rowan? Any place you go at this time, you are Rowan, and you have a message to deliver, and you have a message to deliver to some Garcia. It is there. Okay? Now, let's imagine something that is not very difficult to imagine. You know, a person, many times we end up being the individuals that in a way we hate to be. But that's because of lack of reflection. Because I believe in the ability of people to be good. You know? But many times you run into places and you find individuals which have lack of cooperation, stumbling blocks, lack of attention, indifference, at the best, a lukewarm attitude toward what they do. And a good question that we can ask is, can this person deliver the message to Garcia? So, as I told you before, I have been an academician for many years, 27 years. My privilege to have had the opportunity to be in this kind of work. And through the years, I have put together few suggestions, recommendations that I think can help us and help the young people deliver the message to Garcia. And I'm going to go through them one by one. Okay, the first one is, right now, just decide that you are going to become an expert in anything. It can be an idea, could be an entire subject, a topic, anything. Just decide that you are going to be an expert on something. Okay, but what is an expert? An expert is a person that has the most knowledge, the highest understanding, and the most ability to break new ground. Decide that you are going to do that. But how can you do that? Okay, there are 3 R's. One is reading, the other one is research, and the other one is reflection. And if you bring reading, research, and reflection into your life, I promise you that you are going to expand the purpose of your own education, and your whole life will change. Second one is very related to the first one, is master the art of creative reading and creative research. I put the creative adjective there. Very important. Don't just do things, do it in a creative way. Okay. Third one is learn to master your time. You know, you don't have to tell you do too many things, and time is fixed in a way. Time is limited. Let me tell you, life is short. One of the great leaders, politicians of Europe in the last century was asked, what is the thing that surprises you the most? And Adenauer said, the brevity of life. It's a gift, and time is short, and the clock is ticking. So please master your time. Fourth one is master the art of preparation, because nothing can substitute for that. Be always prepared. Remember, you cannot deliver the message to Garcia without preparation. And Pascal said the following thing. He said, chance favors the prepared mind. That's what Blaise Pascal said. So master the art of preparation. Don't get too confident and rationalize, because if you become complacent and you rationalize, then you can be unprepared. And there is always a time window to do the thing, and you got to do it while the window is open. Can you imagine? Think about it. Many times we can be the person of the moment when you do the thing at the moment that was needed, not after that. A lot of people tell you, oh, I thought about this, and I did this. I tell you, I thought about this, and all that kind of stuff, but the time is gone. They miss the opportunity to be the person of the moment. So master the art of preparation. The fifth one is, keep in mind that we are individuals, and as such, we have three dimensions: the spiritual dimension, the emotional dimension. Yes, our emotions are very important. What keeps us together, what makes you deliver the message to Garcia is your ability to connect emotionally with people, because we have an emotional dimension: the spiritual, the emotional, the physical. We see that. So develop habits that will result in a good total health for all these three dimensions. Ralph Waldo Emerson, we have heard many times about him. He said the following thing, I'm quoting from him. He said, "Give me health, and one day, and I will make the splendor of the emperor ridiculous." Having good health is a tremendous thing. Many people, particularly those of you who are young, many people would give their wealth for the health that you have. I'm thankful that I'm a healthy man. You look very healthy to me too. So think about, we all of you have a good job. You are coming to a very good university. You have good health. You have good families, friends, people that love you. We are lucky people indeed. 6-1 is work hard, think big, and always have a dream. Because opportunities usually come disguised as a hard work. So don't be afraid of changing, of working hard. Welcome actually the opportunity to do that. When I was an undergraduate student in Colombia, in Colombia we have a 5-year program, and we have the concept of a graduation project similar to the master's thesis that we have in the United States. And my director, my supervisor of that one, was a French man. He was in Colombia only for a couple of years, and he's the one who taught me a little bit about operation research that eventually I learned to love, and the reason for which I am an academician myself is my love for operation research. It's a part of industrial engineering, and this guy taught me. And when I was discussing with him way through the 50% of my time that I devoted to this research, he started talking about changing, making changes, and I thought about the hard work, and he read in my face that I was afraid, and he put his hand on my shoulder. I still feel the weight of his hand on my shoulder, this one. He said, "Alberto, don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid of changing, and don't be afraid of working hard." And that's why I put this here. Work hard, think big, always have a dream. Now remember this, 7-1. It's what kind of people we are, okay? If you don't care for yourself, who is going to do that? So we need to be our best friends. But if you care for yourself, only for yourself, then who are you? And if not now, when? Now is the time to actually care for yourself and care for the others. The 8th one is, there is no sure formula like F equal MA. That's a formula that works all the time, right? Most of the time. F equal MA, or voltage equal to I times R. Those formulas work all the time. But there is no such a formula for success. There's no sure formula for success. But guess what? There is a sure formula for failure. And the sure formula for failure is to try to keep everybody happy, to try to agree with everybody. When you try to do that, then you will fail. So there is no sure formula for success, but there is a sure formula for failure. 9th, the time to be happy is now. It's not tomorrow. You cannot say, well, tomorrow I'm going to be happy. The place to be happy, you cannot say, oh, I'll be happy when I leave Knoxville. The place to be happy is here. And the way to be happy is making others so. See, I always, we are not alone. And there is an interaction between us and the others that actually is very beneficial to a human being. I'll say a few words before I finish on this. The last one is don't spend your life building barns. I guess I need to explain that. Don't spend your life building barns. And I found this part in the Gospel of Luke. You look at the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, then there is one person that comes to Jesus and he says, just tell my brother to give me my part of my inheritance. And then Jesus says, what a person has doesn't make his life. And then he shares with the people that there was a guy who was very wealthy and that he walked around and he was very proud of what he had. And he thought to himself, what I need to do is to build bigger barns to put all the things that I have. And according to this part of the gospel, he said that night he heard a voice who said, fool, tonight your soul will be taken. So I would say, let's not build our life, let's not spend our life building barns. Okay. As you already have seen, what I have been talking about is change. I have been talking about changing. You cannot deliver the message to Garcia if you don't experience change. You have to change. So we are what we are, but we cannot stay being exactly what we are. And actually life and change are the same. Change is a good thing in life. Okay. So I have a plan, and I read a book called Primal Leadership based on a concept called emotional intelligence. And the main author of these books is a former professor called Daniel Goleman. You can find his books. Those are two great books, Emotional Intelligence and Primal, Primal, Primal Leadership. And in that book, I found the steps that we can follow if we want actually to experience change in a way that is sustainable. Because you can change for 1 second, but we're not talking about changing for 1 second. We are changing our life, and it can be done. The good thing is that we can change in a sustainable way, and there are 5 discoveries to do that. And I promise you, I know of people who have done it. We can do it. There are 5 discoveries. First one, you've got to discover your ideal self. Who are you? Simple as that. Who are you? Your ideal self, I would say your real self. Who are you? Now the ideal self, the second one is, who do you want to be? And they are interchangeable. First, who do you want to be? Second, who are you? Or first, who are you? And second, who do you want to be? One is the real, the other one is the ideal. When the ideal and the real are not the same, that gap translates quite often into something that we call suffering. Okay? So the way to reduce suffering is to reduce the gap and make the ideal and the real the same. It can be done. Okay, so first, discover who do you want to be. Second, who do you want to be? Who are you? And then you have to focus on 2 things, the strengths that you have and your limitations. Today, we don't talk about limitations, we talk about gaps. It sounds better. It's like our chancellor talking about the half full glass instead of the half empty glass. I think that's a good thought. So who do you want to be and who are you? And then to answer the question, who are you, you have to be able to see what are your strengths and what are your gaps. Otherwise, you don't know yet who you are. And then the third discovery is a learning agenda. then it's a learning process. See, learning is one of the most fundamental things in life, because here you have to come up with a learning program that will capitalize on your strengths to close your gaps. That's the thing. Okay, now, fourth discovery is practice, practice, practice. Let me tell you a little bit. Suppose that you have this kind of situation that is making your life difficult. It shows up every time, and you decide that you are going to change. Then, for example, one is the ability to keep cool if people disagree with you. That's not easy. Okay, that you keep really cool, listen to the person. People are disagreeing with you in strong terms. Most of the time, we explode and we answer back. So, the ideal person I want to be a person that will take it easy and will not explode. The person that I'm the explosive person. My learning agenda, I'm going to capitalize on few things that I have to actually learn to take it easy and not explode when people attack me or disagree with me. So the first one that I'm talking about right now, the practice thing, is I'm going to welcome every opportunity that I can see to practice. So in a way, it's like using the word as a lab and the others as guinea pigs, sort of, in a healthy way, you know. So then you go into places where you know that they are going to disagree with you. And you say, no, but I came here just to take it easy. And you welcome every time all these things. And you do it until you actually have reached the point of mastery or close to that. And the last discovery is develop a supportive and trusting group of people, because we need relationships. We need relationships. And here is when I have to go back to something that I mentioned earlier. There was an English poet, John Donne. Some of you probably have heard his name. And I came into this name when I was a teenager, because I read a translation of the book For Whom the Bell Tolls by Hemingway. And he has a little sentence on the first page, before the actually first chapter, by John Donne. And it was in Spanish. So I translated the Spanish into English to get back to the original, but it's a translation of the translation. When you translate a translation, you are not sure that you get back the original. Okay, so I translated it like this. It says, of course, no man is an island. We understand that. No man is an island. Everyone's death diminishes me because I am affected by humanity. Ask not for whom the bell tolls, because it tolls for you. Okay. And then, just a few minutes ago, when you called my secretary and told me that time was ready to come, I looked in the internet. I thought, I bet that my translation is not very good. So I got the original one. He says, actually my translation wasn't too bad. He says, any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Almost the same thing. I thought I was proud of my translation. Okay, it's very important to have that feeling of connectivity with the human race. Those who have it, they have something that works on their behalf. Those who don't have it have a problem. Okay? And I'd like to close my talk with a little diagram. I don't know if you see it, but it's a circle. It's not in a circle. I call it the circle of inspirations. You want me to draw it? Well, it's okay. The circle of inspiration. Okay, let's see. Okay. Well, I'm glad that this didn't show better because he wasn't that rounded. Okay. This is the circle that I call the circle of inspiration. Okay, a circle has a center and a radius. And what you cover with that circle is A, which is equal to pi r squared, as you remember, by the way. So if you want to cover it, once you have the center is the focus on which you are focusing. Notice that pi is 3.1415.9, and there is nothing you can do about pi. But there is something you can do about the radius. And it is squared, so it's even magnified, the effect of the radius. The radius is your ability to inspire people. That's the radius, the ability to inspire people. And I call it the circle of inspiration. And I also believe that most of the 360 degrees should be provided by you. And give the others the remaining degrees. So if you ask me, I would say 270 degrees for you and 90 degrees for the others. That's particularly important to us faculty, people who teach, because we need to inspire our students to learn from us, not to learn from the book, not to learn from other things, but from us. Okay, and then if we put the 270 degrees, then we expect that the student will give us the other 90 so that we all are equally inspired. When I was at A&M and I was teaching, sometimes I went home. I don't have to drive there. I didn't have to drive there 30 minutes every day like I do here. Okay? So I wish I had 30 minutes there to think more about this. So I have to think very quickly because it was fast that I went from my office to my home. But starting thinking about at the end of the day, I felt inspired. I was trying to be in the business of inspiring my students. And when I was driving home, and the sun was setting sometimes, I remember, and I looked to the right and I saw the campus of Texas A&M, I have to say, an incredible machine, Well, I'm very happy to be here and was proud to be here. Well, I looked at that incredible machine to my side and the sun was coming down, and I felt, leaving the campus, I felt inspired, and inspired by whom? Inspired by my students. So we can be inspired by our students in incredible ways. You can inspire your profs. So if we close the circle of inspiration, then we reach what we wanted to have. And I'd like to finally really close my talk with a paper clip that I have here. Actually, it was in Newsweek. Was in the issue of June 1st, 1987. Almost 20 years ago. 18 years ago. I used to get the subscription for Newsweek. And in the transition column of the magazine, I read this. It says, Ralph Waldo Taylor, 105, of a stroke, so he died, of course, of a stroke in Pompano Beach, Florida, May 15. The former president of two Long Island banks was the last survivor of the American soldiers who charged up San Juan Hill in the Spanish-American War. I thought I'm going to keep it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me here today.
Okay. Okay, we have time for some questions and comments. Mario. Wait a minute. Mario, use this.
It's made into a movie that I saw when I was a kid, maybe around 1950 or something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Message to Garcia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do we have other questions and comments? Well, I have a question. You've been here 2-3 months now.
2 months.
2 months. And since you've been here, what is it that you've enjoyed the most since you've been in Tennessee? And the corollary to that, what is it that you miss the most from Texas, from Texas A&M, from College Station, Texas?
Okay, what really, that's two easy questions for me. The first one, what I like the most, what I have noticed the most in my 2 months over here is the kindness of the people of Tennessee. I have to say that. What I miss the most is my T-bone steak that I grill,
Yeah, you grill it.
Yeah, the T-bone steak. I've seen it around a couple of stores. I have not seen the T-bone steak that I saw in Texas.
I can fix that problem.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? If not, let me remind everyone that we do have refreshments downstairs. And as I think you've seen today, Dr. Garcia is a very friendly, open person, and he's a real joy to talk to and to be with. He'll be down there, and you can talk one-on-one with him. But before we adjourn, let's express our appreciation again to Dr. Garcia for his presentation today.
Thank you.
Then we can turn these things off.
Okay.
You did good. Very good. Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation.